So just be mindful. This is a recorded meeting. We are going to share this on the township's website as well as through our social media outlets. This meeting typically allows people to get a good overview of the activities happening in Meridian Township. So just be advised, it is being recorded. And it is 6:30. I will start off slow so that members of our general public that are interested in listening to the update from the Meridian Talks Development first quarter series. Hopefully I'm capable of pumping another one out for second quarter to see where we are. But I think this will make it fairly easy for you all to keep up with all the many things that are happening in the township. As I said before, this meeting will be recorded. It will be shared on the Meridian Township website as well as our social media YouTube page. It's a great resource for people in the community who don't have time right now. I understand I've got a son in Hazlett schools, so lots of parents have evening activities or just plain need to go home and take a nap and rest from the day. So this recorded meeting will be able to be shared among the public and later throughout the year. I want to thank you all for your time of being able to come out tonight. I recognize it is a kind of extensive long talk here, so I will get right to it. I am focusing on two different screens, so if you don't mind, please either raise your hand or make yourself known once we get to the question and answer section of the development projects. All right. So one thing I want to remind people of, I'm going to say the word tax a lot this evening. And many times when we hear that, it sounds like somebody else is taking money from me, from my personal coffers. And so I want to just reiterate that we are a charter township. We are the Meridian Charter Township of Ingham County. As a charter township, taxes cannot be levied without the approval of 2/3 of our voters. So even though I'm going to use the word tax, and I will explain the definitions that we are using when we talk development, it is not an additional tax on any of our real estate property that we own in the township. So these are systems of incentives that have been made and are used around the state for quality redevelopment projects. Meridian Township is a little young when it's talking about redevelopment and its history with redevelopment. So some of these things have been in use for other communities for a while. and Meridian Township is now just getting to the utilization of these tools. So we will continue to talk through that, but I wanted to reiterate to the public that I am going to use the word tax, and it is not an additional tax upon the personal property of any of our residents in the township or any business properties or any of that in the township. That the word will be defined, and I will take you through those definitions once we get to that page. So what is economic development and why neighborhoods? My title is Neighborhoods and Economic Development Director for reasons like this. When we have major moving parts of complicated projects, we always have projects in Meridian Township. We're a growing community. We've grown from about 42,000 to definitely 43,000 and approaching 44 residents in the past decade. It's been a large improvement to the community, but that means that the needs of the residents in the community will continue to grow and continue to be larger. My position is to help developers foster a good relationship with the township, with the residents, and with the property owners. As many times the developments that we are reviewing and approving are not property that's held in public use. These are private landowners that will meet with a private developer, and we're trying to incentivize having that development happen. So in many cases, we want to be a good public partner. We also want public benefits, right? We also want to make sure that it's quality development that supports our overall vision. That overall vision comes from our master plan. And this is a year for master plan update. So I will mention that toward the end of this presentation. The master plan is the document for people like myself, Economic Development Director and Community Planning Director, to implement those goals. The vision of the master plan included 3 areas for potential intensity change areas, PICAs, as we call them. And we will define those and get to those in a moment. That concentration of development should happen according to the master plan in those areas. And we're trying to preserve the nature and the quality of our neighborhoods by leaving those out, creating ancillary benefits outside of those neighborhoods to create that walkable community where the needs are met of the public. So that's where the neighborhoods comes in. I am actively pursuing development. And so it seems like it might be contrary to what the master plan is saying, but the master plan is the plan. It's the discussion in the document for myself and community planning department to follow, to bring to our community. So I'm getting right into it because we have a lot to discuss. Residential developments. I've broken out many of the residential developments that are occurring this year, either approved, pending, or commenced development projects that are residential only. So these are single family homes or multifamily unit developments specifically for residential use, just residential use. These 5 that I have presented in front of us with the big hands are showing the general locations of those developments. It's a small map and a bunch of hands. So I tried to get as close to the location in general, but we will begin with the Woodward Way project that's over here on Sir Hall Drive behind Whole Foods. Then Copper Creek over here off of Hazlett Road and Creekwood. Silverstone off of Powell Road and Grand River. Silver Leaf off of Bennett Road. And Sanctuary 3, which is the 3rd phase of the Sanctuary residential development off of Hagedorn and Hewlett Roads and Jolly Road down here in this area. So here's Hagedorn and Hewlett Road comes through here. So Woodward Way, which was our first discussion project, that's right here behind Whole Foods. That project is 49 apartment units. They have gone through an amendment. When we originally discussed this project last year, it was 49 apartment units and townhomes. They have since then adjusted to apartment units. I want to talk about that. I think a lot of people will hear adjustments from many of our major developments and think, why are they making that adjustment? I like to think of when the development is being constructed, you know, it's not in until the fat lady sings, essentially, right? It's not in until the final of the project is completed. So as long as they are meeting the site plans and the site plan has been approved, which is the site plan that consists of 2 buildings at Sir Hall Drive and no townhomes. That was what was approved in their final amendment. This project had seen some delays to the Ingham County Drain Office, as well as some other delays with the structure of their financing, because this project will receive a payment in lieu of taxes. They will still pay taxes instead of paying the taxable assessed value on the property. The township has a pilot, the payment in lieu of taxes, which is an agreement between the developer of a certain amount of the income derived from the development. So a certain amount of income that they get from the rents over the course of time will be contributed as their tax payment. It allows for projects like this that are affordable housing projects that will support 80% of the area median income and 50% of the area median income as residents to be able to live here. And so looking back at the development site in the picture, you know, we have the announcement about other activities that will be coming along Grand River in this area. This is a perfect location for families that have a much tighter income to be able to have access to local grocery, to transit, to be able to get in and out of the East Lansing Meridian Township border area. It's kind of where we are, is entering into East Lansing right here. It's an excellent location. Copper Creek is a development off of Creekwood and Hazlett Road in Hazlett. I've mentioned this before. It's our first approved plan unit development and residential development for Hazlett zip codes and Hazlett Public Schools District in 20 years, which makes it very, very, very supportive of the Hazlett Public Schools. 98 homes. These are single family homes. So you imagine, even if one person per home, that's 98 people, but more than likely for the homes of their size and their starting price, these are going to be for growing families. And so it could be, you know, anywhere between 1 to 6 people occupying these spaces. And that's very good for the Hazlett Public School District. It's providing new housing stock into the Hazlett's community. It will allow residents currently, if they decided and they wanted to enter the housing market, that they could leave their current location and come into Copper Creek, and also provide brand new homes for people who are looking to become new residents of Meridian Township. Fluctuation happens, people sell their homes, people, you know, they either outgrow their home or, you know, they want a different neighborhood for whatever reason. But by the time that Mayberry Homes had submitted and was approved for their project to commence construction last fall, they had 10 of the properties already sold. So it's a very good sign. 3 of the 5 residential developments are being brought to us by Mayberry Home Development. So that is number 2, the Copper Creek development. Number 3, the Silverstone development, is also a Mayberry Homes project. That's 25 single family homes. Again, if you average 1 person per home, but these are growing home sizes. So it could be anywhere between 1 to 6 people, maybe even more. Half of the 25 parcels have already been approved for certificates of occupancy, so they can begin putting those properties up for sale, and many are already for sale. So if you're driving on Grand River and you're seeing some rooftops from what seems like the distance, Grand River and Powell Road, that is where that project is. A special assessment district was approved for the project to complete the streets. As I said, we are a township, so townships in general do not have the full responsibility and authority of managing our roads. We do have a road millage in the community to do road improvements and road enhancements on our schedule, on a schedule that we believe is appropriate for the maintenance of township roads. Otherwise, we would leave the decision-making and maintenance to Ingham County, and more than likely, we would not see the updates at the time that we would like to see them. But typically, when a new residential district is going to be put in, a special assessment is done for that district, and the developer puts in a street. And so that is what we have with Mayberry Homes on Powell Road. It's a new finished and paved Powell Road. The next development is Silver Leaf. And so it is right here off of Bennett Road, and very, very close to Bennett Schools of Okemos. 125 single family home development that should commence this year as weather is permitting. The project is a planned unit development, and I will get to also that explanation, but that allows us to group a large amount of parcels together and review it quickly and approve it for a very specific allocation. That's what PUD, planned unit development, is. We know exactly what's planned for each unit, and it's a large rezoning in a sense without going through that specific clarification. The project completion time for Silverleaf is 2024. And recently we found out that Gagere Homes for Sanctuary, they are the Sanctuary developments, they're on their phase 3. There was an agreement several years ago with this developer, and there were some legal issues for the remaining portions of this 7-house development that they are trying to commence here in the community. So that legal issue with the developer and the site has been cleared up, and they've re-engaged with the community. There was an approval at the Meridian Township Board meeting March 15th, as they are formally platted. So the designated parcels where each home had already been determined when Gagere Homes had last brought up this 3rd phase of the development. We held off, it was held off until we were told of the formal legal agreement. And so now we are reviewing that, and we'll be able to give comment and push that forward. That's where we are with residential developments. Please, raise your hand, shout out. Sorry, I'm trying to just double check to make sure anybody's not left out here in the wind on my second screen. So please feel free to shout out if I do not get to you. Moving on to the commercial developments, I've got quite a few to go through here. We have Trader Joe's to begin. That's 2755 East Grand River Avenue. Anyone that may have traveled into East Lansing or needed to go south in the community and decided to take Grand River to Hagedorn may have seen this demolition happen a couple of weeks ago. We're very excited about it as it came forward first with a variance of the Zoning Board of Approvals. And so I think sometimes it's great to explain how things get to the community. Trader Joe's, much like Whole Foods, is one of those developments that it was heavily pushed by property owners and by avid visitors and people who love that kind of store. So for Whole Foods, the property owner was very excited and had reached out to Whole Foods franchise multiple times to express that Meridian Township was a great place for their product. And then Trader Joe's, it is much of the same kind of situation where this developer has been looking for a good home for a location for Trader Joe's. We met the market in so many areas, but again, location. And this developer was capable of working with the property owners on Grand River to come up with a deal that would work for the franchise market. So Trader Joe's, right? It's under development. It's very exciting. We actually recently received the plans. And so many times I want to make sure personally for myself that we have the right information available for the public before I start saying it's a done deal. And I like to see foundations put in before I say it's really a done deal, but we do have the plans. And so we are going through that. And that's how development works. Many times a developer would like to know that their project is going to be approved before they finish doing the hardest part of the construction drawings and the most expensive part of the architectural and engineering drawings. And so they like to get the general concept down in front of a municipality first to know, is this going to work? So that's Trader Joe's, and we're very excited to bring that forward. We've got Buddy's Pizza with an opening April 4th. Woo, we did it. I know many people were very eager to see this come in. Friday, we had a final inspection. It allowed for the temporary occupancy. So you'll probably see some cars going in and out of there. I believe that they're working on some staff training to have their open on the 4th. We have the ribbon cutting at 10:30 a.m. as they will be open for business that day. And part of the proceeds will support Haven House of Lansing. The Buddy's Pizza Group has let me know they are very engaged into being community partners. And so they like to launch these moments and days of caring when we're giving back to other to others in our community. So very happy to do that and to bring in a favorite of what was late Supervisor Steicha's favorite pizza joint in Detroit. Gym Kind Academy, also a long process on bringing this new use to the Meridian Mall, but a great use. The owners reached out and immediately asked, you know, we need a building, we need somewhere in the township that's got 18-foot ceilings. I'm like, oh man, we're pretty limited on that. And so the mall was the location. However, the suite that was necessary for Gym Kind Academy did not have all the elements necessary. I mean, many of you have been in the malls, you know, not every single suite is made the same. Many of it being retrofitted for retail shopping, not necessarily a gymnastics studio where you could learn gymnastics and train gymnastics. So we've got a potential grand opening set for April 2nd. I think we're going to get it. It's at noon. We're working with the builder and the developer themselves to make sure that the temporary occupancy is given so that we are capable of welcoming them to our community. Over 400 interested clients signing up for the gymnastics training with Gym Kind. And these are the same gymnastics owners as the Red Cedar Gymnastics, but they have changed their name and kind of come up with a little bit of a different program that the same well thought out leadership and care for the community. Red Cedar did start out in Meridian Township, and so it's great to have them come back and to see this new use at the Meridian Mall. So happy to see you all, and it kind of segues into our whole long conversation of Meridian Mall changing as a shopping mall and turning out to be a different kind of commerce mall where different activities can happen and they're kind of put into certain wings of the community. And so High Caliber and Launch and now Gym Kind all taking out that northwest kind of corner of the mall development over there by Studio C. So you have entertainment all happening together. And I think that we can expect to continue to see things like this. You see this in malls that are redeveloping, that they have a mix of activities. Nothing But Cakes is going in at the corner of Okemos and Grand River. And I know some of you are on the screen are going, wait a second, but there's big construction plan there for this year. I know that, and so does Nothing But Cakes. I reiterated it to the developer many times that, you know, is this the right location for you? But much of the conversation of the road improvements, which we will get to, again, it's a Band-Aid that needs to be ripped off. The improvements will be vast for the community. And so having this location on a hard corner, it's great after the 18 months of road construction. So we're going to support Nothing But Cakes, I hope, as they are open, as they open. They have some very custom refrigeration requirements for what they do inside of their bakery. And so that will be one thing that's going to hold them back from being able to really launch, is whether or not they get their refrigerators in. And again, supply and demand, you know, we're walking around without masks and a little bit more of a carefree approach, but COVID still has an impact, and supply and demand on custom things can get hairy and tricky, especially on high ticket items. And so the developer is working steadily, and then we hope to get them open for summer. Hazlett Marathon apparently is too tall. Many people have commented on the Hazlett Marathon. I will precursor this to say members of the public should reach out to board members if they are unhappy with the urban feel that is coming from the developments. We will get, again, in the future of this presentation, we will talk about potential intensity change areas where they are, and that it is the board's prerogative and desire to have them as more urban and dense areas. So they will end up being more dense than they previously have been, and probably more dense than what residents in the community are used to. And I believe that if residents really feel like that is not the direction of the community, or should not be, that those comments go directly to board members, as that is the prerogative and the plan in the master plan. So Hazlett Marathon is one of those piece redevelopments in the Hazlett Pica. They're on the corner of Hazlett and Marsh Road. It's been a long time coming development, and I think that it is going to be a marvelous addition to the Hazlett community. I have never heard so many people talk about gas station chicken in such a positive way. I mean, usually when you think about gas station food, it's not something that you're eager to try, but I've been told it is quite the experience. And without having the experience, I won't know personally. I do shop at this Hazlett Marathon. I take my car in there to get fixed. So I'm very excited to have it back up and running. When we allowed for the demolition and the construction of this site last year, it was to allow the owner to still be open. And so I hope that we can kind of work in a backwards way where the owner will be able to open up the solid building, and the gas pumps will wait upon demand when they can get here. So you will see the site right now has all the external, it has some signage going up, but no landscaping right now, obviously with weather. And I do not see any gas pumps in, but we will take them through hopefully a tentative summer opening, and that's just with reasonable construction times. Consumers Credit Union was recently approved as a new development, a 2,000 square foot development in front of Hobby Lobby. So that will start to see some new updates and more urbanization on either side of Grand River for you. So now if you were traveling eastbound into East Lansing, you would see this to the left, and it will come right up front to the road, just about in Grand River. And it will be in line with the Trader Joe's property. So with the building line of Trader Joe's will more than likely line right up with the Consumers Credit Union building. Hypershine, it will be on the opposite side of where the Trader Joe's location will be. So it will be Consumers Credit Union, and then at the corner of Northwood Drive and Grand River, that it'll be Trader Joe's. And the following property immediately after that will be the old Paul Revere's at 2730 East Grand River Avenue after the Tuffy. So this Hypershine has not begun demolition, but I believe that they will fairly soon. Something that is pushing along the timeline of our demolitions for Grand River specifically is that we have a pending MDOT construction that is coming to the community, and we'd like to get some of that wayward demolition activity out of the way so that we're not in the road right of way during construction times as much as we can. Evergreen Veterinarian Clinic, I am so excited for this one because it has been a long time coming. I was very concerned about what the status of the second time around, the 4737 Marsh Road building. So that's the white looking barn. And we have Pilgrim House and the red looking barn, but the white looking barn used to be second time around, and it's quite a large building. And the property owner had reached out to see if there was any interest in working with the agent. We were able to find a good location for Evergreen Veterinarian Clinic. This will be the second location in the Lansing region. I believe this animal clinic will also have some animal rescue attributes included with this. So I think it kind of takes us a little bit above some of the other animal facilities and veterinarian clinics that we have in town. And it's a part of my DDA and my downtown development district. And so there are some things that possibly this property owner will be able to do, or other incentives that they could utilize in the future if they needed to. Right now, all that's planned is an update on the outside, new signage, and an interior renovation. And so we will see the end of those results hopefully soon. Joe's on Jolly is still coming along. They were last in a stud inspection. They're quite the long way to go. We're hoping to get them to an open for fall. It is a two-part commercial development with the fitness factory in the back and a fine dining restaurant up front. And that frontage is right along Grand River and Jolly Road and Jolly Oak, excuse me. So this commercial area was initially intended as a commercial component for the elevation apartments. It's a shared parking lot and an agreement between the two development areas. So residents that live in that property will be able to come down and use the fitness factory. And when the restaurant is done on the Joe's on Jolly portion, that will be a great fine place to eat. They'll have some outdoor seating, of course, because we're really into this outdoor indoor activities here in the area. Down the street a tiny bit to where the Midwest Power location used to lie on Jolly Road in Kansas is the Sparrow 24-hour emergency room, and they are coming along. They wanted and are projected for a fall opening. I believe they wanted a March opening. And so as you can see with construction, labor, and supply, it depends on what is available, what the plans call for, what the contractors have, and if they have the time for the equipment. COVID has had quite an impact on so many businesses and will continue to as we alter our lifestyles and as we alter our business plans. One of the small business owners I talked to a few days ago has to drive all the way to Chicago to get supply for her restaurant because the things that she typically supplies come from overseas, and they are delivered through shipping containers. And so they're being held right now. And when we think about that impact, it's not just the restaurants. It's not just, our impact on home improvement projects. This kind of carries out to everywhere. And if you've been to Home Depot in the last couple of weeks, you'll see that studs are back to like $8 or $9 price per foot. And so this is wood that anybody used to be able to go buy to make any sort of woodworking project at their home, and now it's an astronomical price. And so that affects all of us. I know I said I was going to talk definitions, and I'll come back to them. Since this is a recorded presentation, people will be able to come back and look at the definitions that I have, but it's a lot. And so we'll make sure that we're all using this language in these words. MUPUD is a mixed use plan unit development. Like other plan unit developments, the specification allows for residential concepts to be proposed along with non-residential concepts. So sleeping can occur with commerce. A plan unit development, a PUD, is a form of land use approval that allows flexible development, generally of large parcels, more than the underlying code of ordinances allow. Many times you'll see an MUPUD in areas that we've already zoned as commercial. And so the reason why a developer has to come after this as an application is to allow commercial or non-residential, right, commerce like things to happen where sleeping and eating in general, laid back residential activities happen. PICA, potential intensity change area, designated approved areas by the township board to prioritize redevelopment of high trafficked areas of Meridian Township. So we'll go through those. We'll come back to this page because I believe in you all. I know you can read, but I just wanted to give you from my brain what I'm thinking about when I say Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, Downtown Development Authority, Capture, Eagle. Who are these people and what are we saying? And I could keep going, but these are the big hitting items for tonight. The boundaries of the Downtown Development Authority in Okemos are such. If you're coming down, it goes along Grand River, right in front of Meyer, to the intersection of Grand River and Okemos Road. Down Methodist a little bit, incorporating some parcels along Ardmore, around Liverance, Clinton, through the roundabout, and back down Marsh Road. This is also the Downtown Development PICA. This is the Okemos PICA. So this entire boundary line is not only just the downtown, but it is also the area for potential intensity change areas. This is in the master plan. As you see, the township board has designated, and the master plan designates commercial in these high pink areas. How much density change the board would like to see in commercial just alone, and then how much density change they would like to see in housing just alone. These are available ideas, available areas, available for somebody with the time and the money and the know-how to purchase these properties and then present these as possibilities. Our potential intensity change area. So here it is, the bread and butter. I'm sure many of you are here to hear about the Village of Okemos project. So here's a simple timeline for where we have been and where we are now, because there's a lot of moving parts. This is a 5 funding bucket mechanism project. It's in our heart of our community. where many of us have almost a feeling of our heartbeat is in. I used to work for a city manager that used to say, your downtown is your heart. It's beating, and it is what is going to pump blood into the rest of your community. And so if there is no heart, what's happening to the rest of your community? And though our community is a little bit different, it's shaped a little bit different. We do have our downtown centrally located. It's around our central business district areas, and we are trying to revitalize it. That is why the township board designated this entire area as a potential intensity change area. It's not just about this four corners right here. It's about the potential to see so much change and so much growth in an area we've designated to be predominantly commercial. This is the largest, one of the largest areas, and we've seen a lot of commercial, right? We've seen the Aspen Dental, we've seen the Chick-fil-A. Those have come in, and where we encourage the development, that's part of my job. That is a portion of the job, is to encourage it in the areas we've said, hey, that looks great. So for Village of Okemos, we approved the plan. The bottom, we approved a new tax increment financing plan for the DDA in 2018 to support the project moving forward. We needed a stronger approval plan for tax increment financing. The Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, so a state program, granted the Village of Okemos LLC the ability of $1 million grant. It's just about $1 million, and $1 million loan, so almost 2 million for site contamination and cleanup. So we have not utilized all of that funding yet. Only a small portion of that funding was used, and that was used for demolition at the time. Original approval of the entire mixed use plan unit development for the Village of Okemos. So this probably was just about when members of the public were seeing some concept plans for the first time. Then there was this weird COVID pause where I wasn't even a township staff member, so I can't really tell you what was going on, but how complex this project is and how devastating COVID was as far as development and timeframes. It's almost as if like the development at the time needed to be completely readjusted. So at the time I joined the township staff at the bottom of 2020, we were receiving our first amendment to the initial MUPUD, which was approved here, to allow for some flexibility of non-residential on Okemos Road, change to surface parking deck, and phase development over time. Then January of 21, the demolition began for the 2 blocks. And that's where we used part of the grant from Eagle for a portion of this, very small portion. Then about mid 2021, we received a second amendment from the developer to remove the 5th story from the project, to remove the parking deck, and to phase development in for Ardmore residential. That was only partially approved. So what was partially approved there, a developer can submit an application. It does not necessarily mean because they submitted the application, it was approved. It just means that that was what was included in their application. So their initial application included a very large request to reduce the commercial to a very, very small amount of commercial spaces. The township board was not in support of that. And so what has been approved is the 32,000 square feet of commercial space on Hamilton Road. So east and west, and of the north and south blocks going east and west on Hamilton Road, first floor will be commercial. It's 4 stories, so it's 4 stories of residential, and it will be surface parking. So that was what was approved. We spent some time after that with the developer. We talked with the developer very frequently, trying to help them pencil in this development and get to our final steps, which is the remaining funding sources. I think people will ask, well, why doesn't this developer have any money? Well, it's not that they don't have any money. The site is contaminated, and we knew that. The developer knew that, and after reviewing that with Eagle and with the township and with the other approving authorities, they have determined the contamination is extensive. However, encapsulating it or creating a development over it is the best way to make sure that the contaminants do not spread and do not get worse. So that's one component of the expense of this project. The other thing is we are now redeveloping an entire downtown in 2022 instead of developing an entire downtown in 1910. We took away buildings, so we're not retrofitting anything. Everything is brand new. The buildings had to come down due to their blight and to their obsolete mechanism to the entire authority. So without buildings, we're starting fresh. We are building a downtown. And we are doing this based off of the needs of the community and the requests of the community. An application was made to the Meridian Redevelopment Fund February 4th of this year. And an application was made to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority and their fund February 14th of this year. So recently you've seen in the news that it was reported the Meridian Redevelopment Fund request ask was just about 3.3 million. And the Meridian Economic Development Corporation approved a number not to exceed, approved a recommendation to the township board of not to exceed $1,250,000 toward public improvements on this project, on the Village of Okemos project. A public hearing is required as a part of the redevelopment fund. So the redevelopment fund process, it allows for an application to be submitted to my department, to myself. I review the application for completion. And if it isn't within the intent of the redevelopment fund policy, I submit that information to the Meridian Economic Development Corporation. They review that, ask for the township board to select 2 members of the township board to serve on the Meridian EDC as a subcommittee. And we review the requested application as a subcommittee. So the Meridian EDC did do those things. They requested 2 members of the township board, and we created a subcommittee to review the request. That is why it is at 1.25 million. That was the approved recommendation. Following the next steps, we will have to set a public hearing date. So that is a good time for members of the public to come and speak their minds related to the request. That public hearing date has not been announced yet, but it will be as soon as possible. And I hope that many of you join. The Brownfield Redevelopment Authority also has a public hearing before final approval of the plan can be given. And so that will be announced very soon. If I had to give a good guess, again, I'm not going to pencil this in right now. This will be publicized and put on the website. But if I had to give a good guess, those public hearings will happen at the end of April. I would say the April 26th Township Board meeting will probably be those dates. So take a look at that. So this is what the project is. This is what is approved. 32,000 square feet of non-residential space going on the first floor on both sides of Hamilton Road. Right here, this image right here is the boulevard. It's like a lane of beautiful grass and kind of like separating to and from traffic on Hamilton Road. These are bump out areas for on-street parking. They're not angled, but they are on-street parking here. We don't have any ability for on-street parking on Okemos Road. So there will be some on-street parking on Ardmore. The parking on the site, north and south blocks. The developer still has to get through site plan approval with the township. So all of the requirements that are listed in the MUPUD are required to be met before approval will be given and before construction can begin. So we have a group of people, we have a whole community planning development department, very capable, hardworking staff who will make sure that these things are in stone before the development can begin. And so site plan approval has not been approved yet. The developer has received comments from internal staff about things on their site plan that need to be addressed, and we believe the developer will do so. And if they don't do so, again, it won't be approved. So they kind of have to. So I wanted to kind of break this up because we are talking about lots of different monies from where. So we are talking about Brownfield. We were talking about a portion of money from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. So it's the state's Economic Development Corporation, and they will take, the developer hopes to do a large request to the Michigan EDC instead of the township. So the township in of itself for funding, it's going to be very small in comparison. The Meridian Township Board and the Meridian Township community desire a vibrant downtown. And the township has allowed for the DDA to have increased residential density. Increased density is the only way to attract new businesses and to support the new businesses that will occupy the space. By adding populations of residents near an area with potential new commercial, the residential population will support that new retail and those services provided. The PICA areas, as set by the township, desire to increase the overall density to attract those new businesses. Our Lansing regional market is at a 17% vacancy rate. The Lansing is huge and downtown is a big part of that. In downtown Lansing, Meridian Township holds about a 9% vacancy rate. And I'd like to be able to get that down by putting in quality development and businesses and supporting them to be able to take on those spaces. So something that we have to think about when we're increasing density and when we're doing all this attraction is making sure that we're watching the key market trends and indicators, checking our residential population, the impact of current commercial space, like what is already open and available, that lenders are using in their conversations with developers to say, you don't need an additional loan to do commercial space in this area because there's this much commercial space already available. And then the land available for redevelopment. Oh, I see a chat hand. I do not have the status of the Daniels Drain Special Assessment Project. I will make a note of this and ask that to be sent to you. So I will get to that in just a minute. I'm talking about TIF, tax increment financing. TIF is an economic development tool that allows a developer or a property owner, doesn't have to just be a developer, it could be a property owner, municipality even, to borrow against the future value of a property to make current improvements. Tax increment financing functions like home equity loans. Bear with me. I know this is crazy that I'm saying this, but I believe so. In general, a home equity loan allows the property owner to borrow a sum of money based on the current value of their property and their mortgage to make improvements to further increase the value of the property, right? You say, hey, this is how much I've already put into my property. I need to take a loan out because I need to do a roof. I need to do a major reno. I want to add another 2 rooms. Whatever the reason is when you're talking to the lender, but you're saying, look at what the value of my home is now. Look at what the value will be when I'm finished and what I can put into it. And the lender makes a loan based off of what they believe the future value of the property is going to be. Tax increment financing functions very similarly. We take the view of what the taxable assessed value of the property is now. And after a developer, we project after a developer puts a great quality project together on that property, what will the taxable value be? What will the taxes be coming into the tax jurisdictions here in the county? What will that value be? Let's just say it's $2 million. The value increases $2 million over 20 years. Well, a developer could look at that $2 million and say, well, hey, that $2 million doesn't exist until I do the work. It doesn't show up until I put a quality project here. So let me borrow $1 million of that so I can finance this project right now, and the 2 million will show up. I'll get the $1 million back after the project is in. It's very much like an equity loan. I'm going to borrow against future equity. Tax increment financing for the Downtown Development Authority is the same way. A property owner can come to the Meridian Downtown Development Authority and say, I'd like to apply to use the tax increment financing application of the DDA to borrow a portion of money right now and get paid, well, not to borrow, but to have access to a portion of money and get paid after I do that project. So the Village of Okemos team with Brownfield and with the Downtown Development Authority, they're asking for the ability to get paid back for work that they do, but paid back with the taxes that they create. So if they don't do the project, there are no taxes to create and there's nothing to pay them. If they do the project and it is quality, they'll come back with receipts and with proof that they did the work, that it was an eligible task or project cost based off of the plan that is approved by the board. And then they get reimbursed. Then they get paid back. There's no large check written to a developer, here you go, Merry Christmas kind of a thing. It is very much a checks and balance system of a developer saying, I need to use the future value of this property to finance this thing, to see it the way through. So I'll do the work, but you pay me back that $1 million. That's all I need is $1 million of the two that I'm going to make $2 million on this property increase. And I'm going to need you to pay me back $1 million after I'm done. So this is what TIF is not. Tax increment financing is not an additional tax placed on residences or businesses of the community. No resident will see their taxes increase specifically related to an approved development. Now, I'm not saying you won't see your taxes increase, because mine increased, but they're not in relationship to this Village of Okemos development, to the Hazlett Marathon, to the Pine Village development, to any of those. Those tax increment financing is specific to the incremental increase on the property that they own, only the property that they are going to improve. They can't get paid for doing improvements on someone else's property. They'll only get paid for doing improvements that have been approved on their property and after the work has been done. Tax increment financing is not revenue of taxpayer dollars. This is not coming out of any coffer that is in a general fund. These payments are specifically put into funds after tax increment financing plans have been generated. The DDA's first plan was created in 2006 and was recently updated in 2018 to be able to support large redevelopment projects, such as the Village of Okemos. Tax increment financing is not a handwritten check. It is not an express check. It is a reimbursement. And they're only reimbursed for the things that they can prove that they have done. So when we're talking about brownfield redevelopment and tax increment financing will work very similarly to a DDA tax increment financing plan, except for these are specific activities that clean up a site or remove contamination, right? So demolition, site contamination, and cleanup. So of the total, it's an $85 million project. The developer is requesting to be reimbursed 4.8 million of those dollars. And 1.4 million is coming from local taxes that would be applied to that property. 575,000 do not go back to the developer. It will stay with the township for administrative costs. It is a part of our plan. It goes into the state revolving fund, into the township's revolving fund. I believe it's about 86,000 for administrative work and another 400,000 as a part of the township's requirement for a revolving loan fund. And this is a 15-year plan. So over 15 years, the developer will get paid back this amount. Again, it's not an express check. It's not a letter now coming to all of us residents here in the township saying, hey, we approved this and our taxes are going to go up. They're not in relation to each other. It is based off of what activities happen, if they happen, and then have to be reimbursed with proof of the activities. So this is our newest image for the Village of Okemos development. Right here is one of the possible restaurant spaces. And it continues along this dark black. So this dark black kind of delegates the restaurant space. Sorry, talking a lot today. restaurant space outside of the other non-residential spaces. Along here is first floor commercial. This is Okemos Road. So this is the north block. Both development blocks are mirror images of each other. So I'm only showing you one building. Imagine this building, if the south block, it's turned mirror image over here facing along Hamilton Road. So this is Hamilton Road right here. This is where people could park going westbound on Hamilton Road, northbound. This would really be the southbound lane, but northbound on Okemos Road. There are some rooftop amenities, but those are only for the residents. I do not have rates right now for rental. Here's another view. So this is Okemos Road, as you can see, because there's no bump out, and this is Hamilton Road. So this is kind of the south side flipped. 200 residential units. So 100 residential units on one block, 100 residential units on the other. That's it. 32,000 square feet of commercial space along Hamilton. So question and answer. Anyone got some questions? I don't believe this. Well, you shout them out if you think of another question. Again, the public hearing for the Village of Okemos Brownfield request and Meridian Redevelopment Fund request should happen in April. Those will be publicized, placed on the website. I will also be talking about them very soon. I believe that will be the last township board meeting in April, if I had to give a projection. The other thing we've done to incentivize development and encourage small business in downtown is we finally created our match on Main criteria application and process. Because Meridian Township is a redevelopment ready community, we have access to the Match on Main program, which is offered through the Michigan Economic Development Department and Corporation. I really hope that we get some applications. So if you are a business that is existing in the downtown district and you'd like to do an expansion, or you are interested in moving into the Downtown Development Authority, we would love to be a part of your application process for Match on Main. The DDA has elected to pay the 10% match, which is $2,500 per business application that would be submitted as our match for that business. So the DDA is willing to spend this money to invest this money into our small business community. So if you are interested and you are looking, or you have someone who is looking, please reach out to me. The applications are online, and Match on Main is a pretty long-standing program. They offer funding to tons of small businesses through lots of DDAs around the state. And I think that Meridian Township should not be left out of that. And I think that we have really great entrepreneurs that are looking to do some quality work here in the township. They may not be $85 million developments. They might be just a $50,000 renovation, but still, if the township could be the applicant on that program, Match on Main, for you, I think it's well worth your time. $25,000 up to $25,000 for eligible business owners.
Amber?
Yes.
This is Joyce Vancouvering. I have a question. What about the parking? I understand there's 100 residents on each block. I'm assuming they're going to be there'll be some 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 1-bedroom apartments. Where will all the parking be in addition to the parking for the restaurants?
You are right on it there, Ms. Vancouvering. Yes. So the parking right now, besides on street of Hamilton and Ardmore, I do not believe that there is any on-street parking for Clinton listed. They are still working through their last parking requirements. So they are underparked. Developers typically don't like to pay for parking unless it's going to make space, but they do recognize that they need some additional spaces, and they are working on that. Without the parking is a part of the site plan approval. So they must have the required parking for the community planning development director to say, okay.
So what is the zoning requirement for number of spaces? Do you know that, or Tim?
That's a
Maybe.
Tim. It's
Tim
based off
question?
of, yeah, it's based off of square footage
Okay,
of the overall site. So I do know that they need about 99 spaces and they are under. And so they're working on, we did a talk about that at our most public meeting at the DDA as well. I believe at Brownfield is that they are under on some of their parking requirements. So since that is a part of the site plan review, they will not get that approved until they come back with plans that show they've meet the parking requirements.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry about that. That was a really great question, Joyce. That's been a conversation for a lot of people. But again, the site plan is so specific. Like, I really wish I could, I will try to send it back out to you, but you can find the comments from the community development director when he spoke about it at our last meeting.
Yeah.
Mr. Paquette, I think that you have a question.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, I just, hopefully a couple of things. So their plan for the development or the approved development is what they've got or what was approved at the last, or the meeting where they took away the fifth floor. In other words, have they got a finalized plan for what they're going to build?
Great question. So yes, they did submit a finalized plan for what they're going to build. And that is what I am referring to as site plan approval. Right now, staff had looked at their construction drawings and they sent them some comments. One of those they sent them several comments about different things that they need to meet. If your question is, did their site plan include showing that they will construct 32,000 square feet of commercial space and 200 residential units for the 2 blocks? The answer is yes. There were other things in the site plan, though, that did not meet our current ordinance. So different things like landscaping, parking. There was a few questions from the community development director that need to be addressed before their site plan will be approved. Did that help?
Somewhat, I think. You know, they've had a lot of changes over the years, and I just wondered, so this is not there as currently planned. There's no need for them to come back for any more hearings or anything else from the board, right? The site plan,
No.
once they approve the site plan, it's a go, or they're approved to build what?
That's a good question. So they will come back to the board because they have some funding requests. They're asking to utilize the Brownfield redevelopment incentive. And they're asking to use the Meridian Redevelopment Fund. So those are 2 opportunities for public hearing and where the board will have a way on the discussion for the project. As far as site plan, like if we're discussing specific amenities or different things that would change the layout or the building or the size, those have been formally approved as the 4 stories, 32,000 square feet of commercial space and 200 residential units.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Question.
Hop right. Oh, go right ahead.
You said that 99 parking spaces, but there's 100 residential units plus restaurants. Wouldn't you need at least 125 to 150 parking spaces?
It depends on what the ordinance is and
I don't
what
care what the ordinance is, common sense. If
What
there's
the-
100 units, there's gonna be at least 1 car per unit, and then you're gonna.
and it depends on what the ordinance is and what the variance allows for the application and for the site plan review. Director Schmidt is very good at his job. We have penciled in this development approval to be very tight and very specific. So they have to meet whatever the mixed use plan unit development says, which was amended in last June. So if 99 parking spaces based on different variances, which were allowed, we do allow variances, meaning if we're going to get something as an amenity, as a public amenity from the developer, we might make an adjustment on some of our ordinance requirements. When I looked at the letter that was submitted from the community planning team to the developer, they needed 99 spaces for the parking in a particular area. And that was not fulfilled. So until that is fulfilled, based on the community development director's prerogative, it will not be approved.
So Amber, is that 99 per block? So block 1 and 2.
I don't want to miscount, Joyce. I don't want to
Okay.
tell you no, and I don't have the letter right in front of me that was submitted to the development team. I
Okay.
just know that they submitted site plans that were underparked, and so we are addressing the parking, but that is one element of their submission that is not in place.
In code. Okay, thank you.
Yes, yeah. So there are a few other things that they have to do in order to make sure that it is in place. Miss Marna Wilson. Do you have your hand up?
Trying to unmute. Hi, everybody. I'm Marna Wilson, and I'm newly appointed to the Board of Trustees. So I'm learning right along with you.
Congratulations, Marna.
Thank you, Joyce. Can you tell me, please, is on-street parking allowed overnight?
You know, I do not have the answer for that for you, Miss Wilson, Trustee Wilson. I will write that down as a question. We don't typically have a lot of parking or areas in the community where we enforce a lot of parking. And so this might be one of those kind of a first tries for the township, but I do not have an answer right off the top of my head for you.
From the hearings that we had 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and Vance, I know you were involved in those. There was concern about parking at that point and the fact that parking may encroach on the nearby neighborhoods, including Cedar Bend Heights. So that's why I'm asking the question, because the parking inadequacy, we don't want to create a problem with that.
Correct.
Definitely. Okay,
But,
thank you.
yeah,
Thanks,
you are
Amber.
You're welcome, Trustee Wilson. I couldn't agree with you more. One situation that kind of slaps us in the face when we think about better planning for a project is when we look at Chick-fil-A. So I think that was a reason why the ZBA took a different careful variance look at our parking approvals when Trader Joe's came along, is because we recognize that sometimes our ordinance may not meet a specific market or vice versa. Sometimes our market or our ordinance may not address a particular market very well. So I don't want to misspeak. I know that the parking requirements are based off of our ordinance, and any variance that was approved and given based off of the overall amenities of the project. I will say that I know that the parking as presented on our initial plan from the developer was not satisfactory for the community planning director. And so that is one of the elements that still needs to be addressed and fixed in their construction drawings before approval. And once we get the full final parking, I will make sure to let everyone know. We are very concerned about the parking, so I'm making a note of it.
Thank you, Amber, and thank you for having this public forum. This is important information. I'm glad to see some folks on here.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Mr. Paquette, do you still have your hand up? I will let you jump in then there, Vance, if you have another question. Okay, so again, I have the definitions listed one more time for different things that you'll hear myself or members of community planning or planning commissioners say with some definitions, because we are talking about the Hazlett Pika. Oh, I am very biased because I live down the street. So I get excited visibly for projects that will enhance my life in 5 minutes of my life. So I'm just a selfish person. But again, listed in our master plan, showing again in pink the areas we would like to see commercial. This could have been open green space. We've had some green space. Look how much housing initially was planned when we brought this plan in our master plan. That was the conversation. Without the township's vision, it would be hard to direct developers. And so this really helped to target into our proposal from Pine Village, as well as from what I'm talking, the Hazlett Village Square concept too, because it doesn't really have a name and we're still in very, very, very early stages of planning. Oops, I'm going in the wrong direction. So here it is. On February 14th, I believe, is when I received the application for the Meridian Redevelopment Fund from the Lake Drive Group, which is a residential development group out of Holland. So they're from Michigan, but they're out of the west side of Michigan. And we initially had a few conversations with the development group about what is possible at this site. And in the conceptual plan, you'll see that they have grayed in the Pine Village development. These are two different development projects. The entire site of the Hazlett Village Square, so this whole thing here, is 24 acres. And 4.5 of those acres have already been sold and are in the property responsible hands of Cypress Partners and Redeco. They will build the Pine Village development. So that was our first puzzle piece into getting this area redeveloped. Now that we have this Pine Village project approved, which fingers crossed that they get started, COVID has definitely knocked them back a couple of months on their plan. We received some interest from the Lake Drive Group. And this is their conceptual. Again, I have it in big bold letters because it's the conceptual. And there are probably a couple of things like everybody wants this pulled up to the road. I've talked about possibly reorienting this site maybe and putting some parking behind here. That could be done because this is early enough in the stage of discussion with the developer to make these changes. This has not gone through site plan approval because this is not a site plan. They have submitted an MUPUD, a mixed use plan unit development, which will allow for a large combined approval of multiple parcels on a very large property, right? So this is 19.5 acres. They are proposing the majority of it to be a residential development with these buildings A through C or A through D as multifamily stacked apartment housing. Pickleball right here, a dog park trailhead with public restrooms that gets people onto the interurban. This area right here will be ample parking for anyone public. So I know I hear a lot from people who like to ride our trails. You know, they come from Williamston or they'll come down from East Lansing. You know, maybe you live somewhere else in the township and you want to take the trail. It'd be great if you could come in with your car and your dog and your bikes, you know, hop onto the trail and do whatever physical activities for the day and come back here. And so that is a spot that the developers have put in. So they have, because of this overall site and how large it is, they will need to meet about 7 or 8 amenities, and asking for those amenities might allow them to reduce the overall parking requirements that we have. But this is ample parking. It is a vast improvement, in my opinion, over what is there, the giant sea of asphalt. The E and F buildings will be townhomes, 2 to 3 bedroom townhomes with garages. And the ones on the ends, I believe, are 2-car garages, and the ones in the middle are 1. And I'm very, very excited about that. As a resident that lived on Marsh Road in Hazlett, so my son could begin school there, we rented a duplex very similarly, and it was, you know, kind of the middle ground before we bought our house. Allowed us to take care of a larger space, a family space that we could grow into, but had all the components of a home. And so we knew that we were ready to move into that kind of a direction once we'd lived in the property for a year. The big elements that I'm looking at is this community hub space. That is where there's been some discussion about some food trucks. It could be a coffee shop, it could be a cafe, but something that's operating a flexible business and food option for me, so I don't have to cook, right? No, but it's not even really necessarily about not cooking. I heard our Hazlett residents say they need some place to go in Hazlett to see and be seen besides the football game. And it kind of broke me inside, because I could totally understand that. Lake Lansing, though, in the Hazlett zip code, is not necessarily something that I believe Hazlettians see as our own anymore. It's called Lake Lansing. It's owned by the county. And so I think Hazlett people are looking for that place where everybody goes after work, after school, that you see each other in passing, that we're always going to be engaged. And as much as COVID made us think we don't like being around each other, it kind of seems like we do. And much like in other urban areas where there's a common plaza and a common place for people to show up, eat, be merry, but also a place where everyone of every age can be. The thing that I'm the most excited for the potential of this project is that people that are independent 55 plus will live over here, and people over here will be market rate. And so now we have this ebb and flow of life, of small families, of no children families, of separated and combined families, and of our more mature population living in the same area and all coming into this common communal space and all using the interurban trail, and bikes coming in, and even a progressive, possibly a bus pad with CATA and a bus route that goes through the complex that takes people to and from work. Now we've really done it. Now we've really created this 15-minute neighborhood that's in Hazlett, that's on a major intersection, that's not in competition with the rest of the commercial that exists. What I'm afraid of is our increase and our desire to have what used to be will probably kill off what is existing. And so how do we put something in here that is sustainable, that is quality, and won't be in competition with the mall or Village of Okemos or any of the other commercial retail that we have going on? And so a food truck, an area where food trucks can come in a couple at a time, could be a rotating business opportunity. Regardless, the developers would like to keep this building, this front building right here that faces Hazlett Road, and demolish the rest of the existing buildings and build up this space. They would also create a 14,000 square foot building at the corner of Hazlett and Marsh Road. You see how far up it's pulled? It's pulled very far up to the corner of the road. And I know that is going to be probably the incentive of the township board to make sure that it's pulled up that far to the road. I know many people have voiced their opinions against that on Facebook. And again, the thing I gotta encourage you all is stop having these super important conversations about how you feel about things on Facebook. It's not enough. It is a great start, but it is not necessarily enough. It's not going to get in front of every single staff person like myself. And most importantly, the township board members. Facebook sends algorithms. It has all of these tricks and fancy things of what you see, when you see it, and why. And so sometimes our worlds are so much smaller when we think that we're going to a platform that's really speaking to everybody, even myself, even holding this forum right now. So I just really want to encourage people to come to a meeting and voice their opinion and really get engaged and ask the questions at the time. Developments change. The first MUPUD for Pine Village has changed. The MUPUD for Newton Point has changed. The MUPUD for Village of Okemos has changed. And so even though these are different projects in different areas and we are weighing them in different ways, the development world pretty much functions very similarly. And so our job, my job with Tim and of the community planning director, myself, and the other staff of Meridian Township with the approval of the board, is to help push it through our process to get it to a point of either it is well and good and approved for our township, or maybe this doesn't work for the developer and they walk away. This is a concept plan again. The mixed use plan unit development for this site has been submitted, but it is under review. Do not have any dates right now for public hearings or public meetings, but my guesstimation after staff look at it for the next couple of weeks is that it would be at Planning Commission in April. And that is a great time to hear your comments on any proposed plans. All right, question and answer. Q&A for the Hazlett Village concept. I'm going over my limit. I know, I'm sorry. I told myself I wasn't going to talk so much. Okay. So speaking of which, it's master plan update here. We're talking about what we hope to be able to bring to the community. But again, it is a very public process. We would like to hear from everybody. Our master plan has to be formally adopted by the end of next year. And so the visions of what we said we would like to see in our community start here. And so you see this highly concentrated pink area is, we want mixed use right here. We want mixed use right here. And that was what was indicated by the township board when we last did this master plan update in 2017. And so, you know, this is a great time to be in front of the conversation, in front of the township board, to express how you feel about where you want specific kind of development. This is the urban service boundary, the area of the community we have restricted to a third that we do not want to see any kind of development happen. And so the rest of the development has to happen on this side of stuff, and which is why you see so much concentration of urban environment along Grand River and along Okemos Road and along Marsh Road. Tomorrow is the virtual meeting held by MDOT. I know none of us want to hear how horrible they're going to make our lives. But they're really not making our lives horrible. They're fixing an exacerbated problem that happens here every hard rain. It floods. We have to close the road down. And so how is that really efficient for people who have to get to and from work, for trucks to get in and out, for vendors? You know, how is that efficient if this is what we're doing every 8 months, or, you know, every hard rain, every 6 months? This is crazy. They're going to do a 1.5 foot raise here, and they'll do a 1.5 foot raise at Okemos and Grand River. Tomorrow will be their public meeting from 6 to 8 to discuss the phases of the development project. It is an 18-month project, so it is long and it's going to be gruesome. The intersection of Okemos Road, north and south, will be closed at a time and will stay that way until the road is raised and a new pipe, a new drain is put in underneath. The same thing for Okemos. And we all know that the bridge construction work is happening on Okemos Road by the county. So that's very much restricted into going north and south on Okemos Road. The detour will be to take Central Park around to Marsh, down, out through the roundabout to Dobie Road and back. And when the bridge opens, you will be able to go south this way. But until the bridge opens, we will not be able to. And if I believe correctly, I thought the county said that they were only allowing northbound traffic through the bridge construction. So you can only come northbound on Okemos Road and go through the roundabout on Marsh. Everybody else will have to take an alternate detour to go south. So that would be Dobie Road and Van Atta or Hagedorn. Miss Wilson, Trustee Wilson, I'm going to get used to saying this. I'm going to get used to saying it. Trustee Wilson.
Or just call me Marna. So we had a meeting today of the Hazlett Okemos Rotary Club, and Kelly Jones, who is the managing director of the Ingham County Road Commission, was there. So I'd like to affirm that all traffic on Okemos Road, when the bridge opens, it will open actually on the south side. But in order to not confuse anyone, it will be all northbound traffic for the entire duration of the bridge reconstruction. So they're trying to make it as simple for people as possible. They'll actually be routing over by the green pedestrian bridge to go northbound. So I just wanted to clarify that because we just heard that today.
Well, thank you so much. That is
You
very
bet.
important. Yes, that's very important. And I hope that they bring that up again in the meeting tomorrow. I hope the county is there to let the public know their plans. We're just trying our hardest to reiterate to everybody. We recognize not everybody lives here. We recognize people just work, some people are coming here for work or coming through here to visit. Please make sure you patronize our businesses. We do, I spoke about Nothing Bundt Cakes going in right here. They're going in and trying to open right as the hot seat is closing. And so let's just make sure that we keep our eyes peeled on our businesses, that we can support them. I will be communicating at best routes to do this. Please attend the meeting tomorrow. It will be recorded. We will be able to share the information that comes from MDOT. Miss Vancouvering.
Amber, is there still a plan for the service road? Like in front of, the Bundt Cake place, or?
You are
There's gonna be a
correct.
small service
Yes.
road, but that will end at Discount Tire?
Correct.
will-
The service road is really for that complex. So it's for the complex that takes up the old Payless was, with the Nothing Bundt Cakes address, Panera Bread, and Discount Tire.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. So there is that drive that can kind of connect you to the Best Buy area, but south of Central Fire Station and north of Panera Bread. And I'll wait until tomorrow to hear this, if whether or not that will be closed. But I'm thinking that could be a possibility for people to use to be able to get into like the Buddy's Pizza area and into Best Buy area. But there will be a service drive. It's gonna probably look very ugly, but it's essentially going to be a layer of asphalt that's put over where the current sidewalk is, at that intersection of Okemos Road, where Nothing Bundt Cakes will go in. So indicating right here again, if this is Chick-fil-A across the street and Meyer south of that, Nothing Bundt Cakes is the property immediately north of that. They will put a temporary access drive, is what they're calling it, across the sidewalk for patrons and deliveries to be made to these businesses, because without it, they would be on an island and would not be able to operate. So that is what MDOT is doing as a temporary measure, and then it will be replaced through the full final restoration. So this is an 18-month project. A big portion of it will be the intersections closing. And if we remember what it was like with the Jolly Road interchange, it'll be much like that, where it's just mass orange barrels and very irritated people. And then all of a sudden, a very clean and open and smooth transition into our community. So I just want to remind everyone the presentation is tomorrow, and we can ask MDOT questions then.
The
We're
other thing,
number one.
Amber,
Yes, Joyce.
if there's another thing I could add on the construction is, I'm on the Transportation Commission, and we're working with MDOT on the signalized intersections for pedestrians and putting flashers and making better what they're called. They're going to be sound signals.
The
for,
audibles. Yes.
Audibles. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So that would be, right now, I think they've nailed down definitely one for Okemos and Grand River. And then we're working with them on the other further east.
You are correct. So MDOT actually did reach out to internal staff. They're
Okay.
asking for us to set up meetings. I think it's just going to be just one, because we have so many businesses, and it's just too hard to get everybody. It's like herding cats, man. It's a lot of businesses that are affected. They would like to do the audible detected, hearing detective for those of us that are vision impaired or are vision impacted, to have a button on each of the pedestrian crossing lights at the major intersections. So the intersections of Okemos, the 4 locations around the intersection of Okemos and Grand River, the same for Marsh Road and Grand River. I believe the same for Central Park, Dobie Road and Grand River. And then also, I thought there was one more. MDOT also approved pedestrian crossings, so they're island crossings, so that none of us have to play Crossy Road. Trying to get from one side of Grand River from, running across 5 lanes is intense. And so they are going to create pedestrian island crossings, one near Okemos in Grand River in front of Campus Hill, one in front of McDonald's, just about here on Grand River, and then the other in front of Dusty's and Grand River. So thank you, Joyce, and thank you to the members of the Transportation Commission and the Corridor Improvement Authority for kind of stepping ahead and seeing that this is a need. There's a need of residents that have varying visual abilities in the township. And so they reached out to MDOT to express that we need these audible signals as well. So it is a lot of work. It is not, nothing in the township is done in a vacuum. I'm just the person saying that this stuff is done, but it's probably, anywhere between 30 to 80 people actively working on so many varying elements. And it's just one project. You got all the people at MDOT, all the people at the county, our board members, our 12 to 13 department heads and their staff to get it done. So I appreciate you all. And again, I couldn't have finished this without the help of Trustee Wilson and Commissioner Vancouvering for your assistance this evening to bring us all roundabout on this project. So if I could say anything about Village of Okemos is we have public hearings upcoming. Please pay attention to those if you would like to speak to the project. Again, it will not be approved until the developer submits drawings that meets the very specific MUPUD. We have funding requests still to go through on that project, and so we still have steps to go. The Hazlett project is in its conceptual discussion phase. Those beginning meetings will be public as well, and so we encourage members of the public to come to those. And please join us at our virtual meeting tomorrow with MDOT to understand the phasing development of that project. We're #1 again. We've been ranked #1 by niche again. So you live in a great community. If you're ever wondering, why do I live here? It's because this is a great place to live. And this is, there's so many reasons to love it. Here's some of the reasons to love it. It's all the same things we always say, but we are adding and continue to add to the greatness and enhancement of Meridian Township. Okay. So that takes us through to the end of my very long discussion. I'm so sorry I talked for so long. Does anyone else have any questions?
Amber, I have one more. I'm sorry.
You're not, no, don't apologize.
There has a village square. Is there any talk about, are those all going to be rentals?
Right now, they are discussing only rentals. We are hoping that we could possibly convince the developer for a for sale portion of the project. We are seeing some of that as a positive in development in the township. This developer typically holds on to their multifamily projects. Not every developer, they do that. Some of them are just build it and then sell it immediately and it's off their portfolio. This developer is not one of those. They typically hold on to theirs. So I think it's just a part of their model, but we are discussing it with them.
Okay. Because if you look on the real estate websites right now and you look for condominiums in Hazlett, there are none.
There are none.
So it would be interesting to see if they would even consider condominiums. But
yeah, especially on the townhomes with the garages, right? Because I mean, essentially that's the kick. And I would be housing and stock in general in Hazlett was kind of the reason it took my family and I so long to get our place. And so, I'm a big proponent of finding affordable housing. And even though I can't set the rates, I will say when we done our research, rental rates in Hazlett are $1,000. It's $1,000 for a 1 bedroom. And it's getting pretty intense out there. And I'm just happy. I'm glad when I bought my house when I did. Mr. Chuck, I cannot say your last name, and I'm sorry, I don't want to.
It's Meniachi.
Meniachi, Mr.
Yeah.
Meniachi.
Just Amber, thanks again for you do a really nice job. I know I sent you a message, a private message there, but I want to acknowledge it in front of everybody else as well. So thank you very much for the presentation. And also I'm echoing the sentiment on developments for purchase. I spent some time with that Four Corners group, providing some input to, I think it was True North Development at the time, when they were talking about these rental units for the Village of Okemos project. And one of their objectives was to keep, residents in place, and the rental rates were not low. I mean, they were high rent rates. And I share with people like me who have had our kids go through, we don't need the big house anymore, but we want to stay. We're buyers, we're not renters. And so kind of keep that in mind as projects come along. I know you're at the mercy of the developers from, if they're going to invest, they probably want it as part of their portfolio. I mean, that's a good business model, but it would be nice to build some things that people who want to stay in the community and do so have a nice place to live. I would have loved to have one of those places in the Village of Okemos with a condo on the top floor with rooftop patio. That would have been great. I told them,
Okay.
I said, I said, I'm a potential customer of yours. This is what I'd like to have. And it's, it wasn't what they planned for at least the first phase.
Yes, so you ran into a little bit of my day in general as I've got this great harebrained idea and I'm gonna call up the developers, see what they say. But I hear you loud and clear. I believe in the power of ask. I also believe in the power of asking for what our community really needs. And we are going to get to a point of having a strong discussion about housing stock, housing affordability. And I think it's the stock that's really the thing, if you're a person and you feel like you've grown out of the traditional 2,000 square foot home, or in a sense, where do you go? And I believe in trying to make a space for everybody. I really do. And you can't for everything for everybody, but I do believe in trying to do that. And my family is a young growing family. And so I do hear you loud and clear. We are a little bit at the mercy of the developer when they're privately developing this and they're taking on a project themselves. But it is nice to encourage, and it is nice to tell them what we need. I think they put a big emphasis on creating public spaces and public amenities. And if I think we stressed that we're emphasizing we need housing that's affordable, then that would have shifted the priority of the development. So it's definitely things for me to think of. I think that we could talk to this group for a for sale option for sure. And hopefully encourage them. So I will do so. I will do so.
Yeah, thanks again.
You're welcome. And thank you all for your time, for your very kind words. Again, none of this work is done in a vacuum. I am a department of one, but I work very, very closely with the community planning development team. They're awesome people, communications team. I work at a really great, with some really great people, and I'm very appreciative of it. So I thank you all for your time tonight. I have recorded this meeting and I will see you later if I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Amber. This was great.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you all. Have a good evening and hopefully see you tomorrow for the MDOT.
Thanks.
You bet.
Have a
Take
good
care.
one. Take care.
Good night.
Good night.